Last week, I went to the beach with a friend. I now owe my life to her and my ankle is still recovering from what happened. It started off as a normal trip. Rebecca's family is well off, but she never showed off. She's the kindest person that I know. She doesn't act like a rich, snotty princess like one would expect. It's painful to see her friends turn on her trying to use it for money when they find out about her full bank account. I had just gotten into a fight with a mutual friend of ours. He had expected Rebecca to buy him a very expensive birthday present and had the nerve to not invite her to his party. Knowing about the fight, Rebecca invited me to the beach to cool off. Her father had a boat, one with a cabin below deck. Not the nicest thing, but way beyond what somebody like myself could afford. She knew how to steer it, and we often took day trips out, just fishing or swimming. She knew that swimming was my favorite pastime, and a day trip was just what we needed. However, when we arrived, and to our disappointment, we were told that the boat's engine was having issues. Her father apologized, offering to pay for our rental for the day, but I refused to let him spend such an amount of money on us, so we ended up just staying on the beach. Finding the beach too crowded, we started to walk around gossiping and joking until we found an area without any people. It was where the beach had ended. The jagged rocks and cliffs didn't look appealing, but we were happy to not be around families and crying children. There was also an old stone pier being slowly corroded by the waves. At one point, I think it held a small lighthouse, but now it stood empty, looking very unsafe for a block of stone. There were signs around the area warning of bad currents around the stone pier. I promised Rebecca that I wouldn't go near it, and I headed out into the water without her. Now, she had very light pale skin. She liked being on the beach but had to be very careful when out in the sun. One time she fell asleep and gotten a sunburn so awful that she had to go to the hospital. Her routine was to swim for a bit and then apply some sunscreen, and she would reapply it every hour if she needed it or not. I really didn't blame her, and I was fine being alone for a bit every time that she left to put more on. I never got sunburned. I was either lucky or too dumb to notice, so I stayed in the water waiting for her. We had been knocking a ball back and forth just before she decided to turn back in. I had thought that she took it back with her, but saw it drifting away close to the pier. It was a cheap thing, and I should have just left it alone. It wasn't worth going into the dangerous area, at least 10 signs warning me away. But I was confident in my swimming and thought that I could get the ball and come back before I was caught in any bad current. I swam closer, and Rebecca had noticed that I was going to the pier, breaking my promise. I gave her a wave and frantically pointed towards the ball, hoping that she could understand my train of thought. She waved back, and I figured that was her blessing to retrieve our little beach ball. I really should have left it, but the little cartoon crabs marching along the ball were just too darn cute to abandon. I had never seen a ball like it, and I didn't want to lose it. I wouldn't admit that out loud, though. I really thought that I was safe. I had spent a lot of time swimming, and I was on the swim team until other schoolwork and a part-time job got in the way. In the summer, I volunteered at the local pool to be the lifeguard, and I was only going to be in that spot for a few seconds. But I now know that you're never truly safe in the water. The ball had drifted nearly against the stone wall. My hands had just wrapped around it, and I was looking over to give Rebecca another wave when I felt something wrap around my ankle. Without any time to scream, I was yanked under. I hadn't had time to get any air into my lungs either, but by some miracle, I was able to close my mouth in time. I started to struggle, kicking, trying to get my foot free. Whatever was wrapped around my ankle felt like a vice. Pain shot up through my leg, and I thought that I would scream and letting air into my mouth, but I held it back. I had to force myself to stop thrashing and to get a grip on the situation. I was going to use all of my energy. I had to be careful of what I was doing or else I would die. Forcing my eyes open and the water stinging them, I made out a black shape wrapped around my ankle. I expected a rope or seaweed, maybe some discarded fishing gear. But my blood froze and panic came back when I saw what it really was. After a few feet, the water had turned dark. I couldn't see very far down. Out from that darkness was a black and bony arm. It looked human enough. It had 5 fingers wrapped around my ankle, but the fingers were too long and thin to be human. I was still being dragged down and I bent over, tearing at the hand trying to get free. When I suddenly was pulled under, I had to let go of the ball. I wished that I had held onto it. I wondered if I could suck in the air from it to give me some more time. But in that moment, I didn't have time to think about if it was safe to breathe in what somebody else had exhaled. I only had a few seconds left. I was being dragged further and further down, but when I grabbed at the hand, my descent seemed to slow. I couldn't even lift one thin finger off. No matter how much I pulled at whatever angle, the thing wouldn't budge. My chest was burning. My head felt light, but I couldn't give up. I wanted to blame my lack of air to my brain for what I saw next. In that darkness came more long and fingered hands, and just enough for me to see them darting around and shyly reaching for me. It felt like they wanted to remain in the dark and out of any kind of light, but my body was tempting them out. If the hands weren't bad enough, I started to see lights flicker in the darkness. At first, I thought it was just my vision starting to go. A scream started to come back up when I realized what I was looking at. Thousands of eyes. All the glowing, flickering shades of neon yellow and green. For as far as I could see, those eyes looked back at me in that crushing darkness. I didn't want to know what they would do to me if they got me into that inky blackness, or what those eyes belonged to. I felt my strength start to fade. Noticing that I had stopped struggling, the vice-like grip on my ankle tightened until I could feel my bones snap. The pain kept me awake for a few more seconds. I knew that I wasn't going to make it. Giving up, I decided the last thing that I wanted to see was the sun through the water, and not what was waiting for me below. But looking up, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Rebecca had jumped in and reached me right before I had passed out, and opened my mouth, taking in a mouthful of water. The pain was too much and I just couldn't help it. I came to, coughing and gagging on the seawater. Confused and in a lot of pain, I looked around trying to figure out where I was and what had happened. We were both on the beach. My ankle was torn and bleeding from scratch marks. Rebecca had long marks down her arm and a bruised wrist. She was also coughing and nearly hyperventilating. I looked from her to the stone pier trying to make sense of it all. I knew that she had saved me, but had no idea how. The ball was bobbing on the waves, bumping against the stone wall. I watched it for a few seconds before a black shape reached up and dragged it under. Rebecca explained to me that when she saw me go under, she ran along the pier. She was a weaker swimmer but was still on the track team. Without any hesitation, she had jumped in after me. Neither of us knew why she was able to drag me out from whatever had taken a hold of me. She told me that it had started to grab for her too, but after touching her for a few seconds, she heard something that she thought was a muffled scream from below. The arms retreated and the eyes closed. She didn't stay around to find out why it happened or if it was really gone. But by some miracle, she got me to shore and did CPR until I came to. I was glad that we both took a class every year. She helped me hobble back to the busy beach to get help, and I made a report of something grabbing a hold of me, but nobody believed me. They thought that we had just gotten caught up in some old fishing nets and should be thankful to be alive. I am thankful, but I wish that somebody besides Rebecca would believe me. After talking about what happened, trying to figure out why Rebecca was let go, we both agreed on a theory. Rebecca had just put on sunscreen, We guessed the creature was sensitive to the chemicals. I had heard that some coral was at risk of dying after tourists would touch them, and the amount of sunscreen they washed off into the reefs killed fish and the coral alike. But I could be wrong on that fact. It was the only thing that we could think of though. Maybe it was the sunscreen, or maybe we just got really lucky. At least I have time off work until my ankle heals. I may still swim, but I'll stick to indoor pools or bodies of water that I can see the bottom. If you go swimming this summer, be careful out there. We still don't know what the oceans hold. Oh, and wear lots of sunscreen.